But Tyanne, suppose there was something we haven't yet talked about the conference that feels important for somebody who's thinking, maybe I want to come to this. What would you highlight that we haven't yet touched on?
I liked how Sidni was speaking about like the relationship and trust building. And for Native communities, they don't have the most trusting with, the U.S. government and so forth, and even just external, outsiders because of what's happened, due to oppression and colonialism and so forth like that. And so I feel it's really important she made that note, just, being consistent is like huge. And then also just really building, those relationships and, just like I say, lending an ear and saying, hey, we're here for you, and trying to build those relationships, I believe is really, important and what's going to really speak, to these communities that are out there. And I'm just really grateful that I've had the opportunity to work directly, on the reservation and to see the perspective from a different angle. But then also to touch upon, like there's cultural taboos as well that is, conflicts with, mindfulness and so forth. One, and you kind of spoke to it earlier, Paul, how, as a Native person and, you hear these things is, oh, you do white people stuff. Like you go to yoga, and
Yeah.
that's what white people do, it's mindfulness. And, having that perspective, it changes. Well, say a Native, they probably wouldn't be inclined to do anything like that because it's, has that unfortunate like stigma, right, of being, white. And so I found that really interesting how, you spoke to that, but then also like taboo. I know in Navajo and Native culture a lot when it comes to death, there's a lot of chronic bereavement that happens in Native communities because there's constant, unfortunate tragic deaths that are occurring among communities. And if things are suppressed, it's gonna unfortunately result into something such as like depression, anxiety, or anything like that. And so a lot of these communities are just suppressing a lot of feelings, but also that's due to culture because they're taught not to talk about these things, and you remain resilient and you don't speak about because it's taboo, or you don't do something because it's white culture. So where do we, where do we find common ground? And I find that really interesting that there's so much to come out of this mindfulness and, introducing, well, kind of mindfulness already has like some Native traditional practices within it as well. And so I just want to say that also when it comes to mindfulness, there's also some stigma and cultural taboos that could be, could be stuck to it, I guess.
Thank you, Ty. I really appreciate you naming that, and we're very committed in the Awarepreneurs community to unpack that and to honor this. Like every tradition has its awareness practices. I feel really confident in saying that, right? Every Native tradition, my Native tradition is I'm a Jew. I'm an Eastern European Jew, right? And we have practices, and they were awareness based, and they've been going on for thousands and thousands of years. But many of them have been disrupted. Many of our Native cultures in so many different ways due to colonization and lots of other forces. So to bring together in a place as diverse as New Mexico and what you're talking about, Ty, just feels so sacred and so healing. And I want anybody somebody's paid attention or tried to pay attention to being in the dialogues about this stuff. I don't have answers, but I'm willing to talk about it. I have been since a long time. I got to New Mexico in '93 as the white guy with a master's degree who was doing community work, including on the Pueblos. So I was like, oh, wow, I am way out of my element here. I better shut up and listen, or at least be willing to learn, right? So somebody's been doing that for a long time now. I'm really touched by the kinds of dialogues that are happening here in the mindfulness world, and how inclusive it is, and how honoring of that as you were so eloquently said, many of these practices haven't felt historically that they're white practices, and that they haven't felt appropriate for people of color of lots of different backgrounds. And somehow that's changing here in this environment due to lots of nurturing, honest conversation, some oops, we made a mistake here, and course correcting, and just it's really beautiful to witness. And there's a lot of mindfulness communities outside of New Mexico who are just like, oh, wow, we need to have some conversations, but we have no models. We've never seen this done before in the mindfulness world. Is part of the reason I feel so grateful to the work that's happening and to be a part of this community that's having these dialogues. It's just not that we're done. We got a lot of work to do here in New Mexico, but we have had some dialogues that other communities are just starting to get into. That would be my assessment if somebody's listening who is not from New Mexico or hasn't yet been to this. This doesn't look like a lot of conferences that I've been to around the world, or that some of our members and Awarepreneurs talk about, saying, oops, we've been doing this for a while and we've got a problem, and what do we do about it? This dialogue has literally been going on for years now, and it's achieving a certain level of traction or momentum that's really exciting and honoring to be in the field of, I would say.